The crisis at the European Union's eastern border is only escalating. Clashes have broken out at the Poland-Belarus border in the eastern village of Kuznica. Polish forces fired tear gas at the migrants after they resorted to stone-pelting. Polish forces say one officer has seriously been injured with a likely skull fracture. Russia has called the use of water cannons and tear gas by the Polish forces absolutely unacceptable. Earlier, the Polish Defense Ministry released a video that purportedly shows Belarusian forces attempting to compromise the border fence. To block migrants, Poland has decided to build a wall along its border with Belarus. The construction of the wall, planned to stretch 112 miles, will begin from next month. It will cost Poland an estimated $407 million. The Polish parliament has already given its nod for the construction of the wall. Migrants continued to gather at the Polish border despite Minsk claiming it was trying to repatriate them. The Belarus forces channeled the crowds towards the last line of Polish razor wire, but they were brought up short by police cordon before they could cross into the European Union. Migrants have been trying to cross from Belarus into the EU for months now. Tensions rose after coordinated efforts were turned back by Polish guards. Brussels has blamed the crisis on Lukashenko's regime. It has accused Minsk of sending migrants to the border as retribution for earlier sanctions. Meanwhile, the European Union has vowed to press ahead with fresh sanctions against Alexander Lukashenko. The EU foreign ministers agreed that existing sanctions will be expanded. The new penalties are expected to target around 30 Belarusian officials, state airline and travel agencies. The United States also said that it was preparing new sanctions to hold the Lukashenko regime accountable for inhumane facilitation of migrant flows.
We are deeply concerned by the Lukashenko regime's inhumane actions, and we strongly condemn their callous exploitation and coercion of vulnerable people and inhumane facilitation of irregular migration flows across its borders. I understand that the EU today announced a new sanctions authority that could apply to the situation in Belarus. We too are preparing follow-up sanctions in close coordination with the EU and other partners and allies that will continue to hold the Lukashenko regime accountable for its ongoing attacks on democracy, on human rights, on international norms.
And joining us for more on these developments is our correspondent Lucy Hove from Brussels. Thanks very much, Lucy, for being here with us. Tell us more about the sanctions that the European Union is now taking on as a means to build pressure on Alexander Lukashenko.
Well, this is an expanded package of sanctions following on from 4 rounds of sanctions already imposed on Belarus since last year, since that contested election over the summer. This has been expanded to include those who are believed to be facilitating the trafficking of migrants from the Middle East via Minsk to the EU's external border with Belarus, given the appalling scenes that we are now seeing with as many as 4,000 people now believed to be at that border. So this is going to impact around 30 30 officials working under President Alexander Lukashenko, facilitating that transportation. This will also include travel agents and airlines such as the Belarus state-owned airline Belavia operating those flights. There have been other EU leaders who've been calling for a flight suspension from some of the impacted countries such as Iraq and Afghanistan, flying into airports in Turkey and Qatar, for example, in order to make that journey. So really closing the airspace to ensure those flights can't take place until the crisis is wound down. So the formal list of names and organisations is expected to be revealed in the coming days, but it is a process of negotiation that could take weeks, with one EU official saying that the list of people on that list does need to be legally watertight.
Right, Lucy, there's also the criticism coming the EU's way that this move could be too little too late and that things have moved beyond the point where these pressure building tactics of this kind will work.
Well, yes, and of course the reason that this activity at the border is taking place in the first place from Belarus is in response to the package of sanctions and criticism of the Belarusian regime by President Alexander Lukashenko. So certainly the announcement of yet further sanctions could run the risk of exacerbating those tensions at the border, but certainly the EU hopes that these will deliver tangible results. We heard from the EU's chief diplomat Josep Borrell saying yesterday that the previous rounds of sanctions had been effective in terms of cutting off resources for those working inside Belarus to prop up the government and to facilitate activities such as what we're seeing at the border at the moment. So certainly the EU hoping that the names of these individuals can be announced shortly in order that these sanctions can take effect, particularly on those airlines deemed to be facilitating the transportation in order to de-escalate the situation at the border.
Lucy Hof with us from Brussels. Thanks very much for now. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.